Okay, here we are again. Henrik and I were meeting last week with this channeled conversation, and today we also have Sussi with us. So we're just talking about stuff that we find interesting in this, let's call it spiritual world, whatever that is. Yeah. So I think we'll just jump right into it.
Yeah. And what we talked about before was, again, energy work and how the energy is flowing and changing. And we talked about what could be beneficial for us right now in the energies to maybe put our focus on and maybe enjoy the energy in. Just what kind of energy wants to emerge right now.
So we are here now. You can sense the presence in yourself. So let's start by pointing into your own inner knowing. We know that we want to have a conversation, and that is splendid to kind of share points of view. But just for now, in this beginning, we would like you, all of us, also you who are listening, to sense into your own center of being, wherein the white light of knowingness is. So therefore, instead of starting with questions, we start with answers. See if you can give yourself this break from your mind. Sensing differently for each one of you, but deeply in the essence of what you could call yourself. This white light of knowingness. That is centered within you, your experience. That can be symbolically represented by the wand or the fire, the white light. And with a calmness and yet such a warmth, where all your answers lie. Whatever we present here today, which content, the conversation, whatever arises from this exchange of energy between us, you, everybody, always have your own reference point as the center of your attention. When you seek answers, let's turn it around and instead just find. And trust what you find. That is a critical point in your experience. Do you trust what you find in yourself? What resonates with you? Because you cannot take anybody's answer for granted on your own behalf. Each one of you have your own journey. and therefore will resonate differently with different answers. There is such complexity and yet such a simplicity. But if you get caught up into the complexity, then you are being caught up in what others might think. If you are in the simplicity, you are at peace with what you think. Doesn't mean that you are locked into one answer and one answer only. It just means that you here and now in the present senses so deeply into what is truth for you right now, knowing that it can be something else in a minute. And the deeper you dwell into this presence, the deeper the answers will arise from, and the slower you will move, but it will be movement in truth for you. A truth that is evolving with you. Let's return to your question. Can we have you say it again?
Oh, the question was about the movement of energy, the flow of energy, and what could be beneficial for us as the souls walking this earth right now, in the sense of we have this, we call the awakening. People raising their consciousness. We have Kundalini energy awakening. So many different kinds of energies. So if you have something you would like to comment on the flow of energy right now.
And see exactly that there are so many different forms, so many different expressions about things. And sometimes it is a little bit like religion, where each religion says they have the truth. But in the end, all religions point to the same fountain. So when you ask what is beneficial right now, there are some dynamics that are easily being moved right now. Things that have been caught up for centuries, millennia, that is changing drastically. But it doesn't matter in which form you work with them. It doesn't matter if you have a special kind of energetic work you do with it. When you sense into your own inner being, your own inner light, you know what is truth for you. And that is, even though it is a collective work, it is also individually based. And therefore each of you must be convinced that what you sense for you only is for you. Therefore, when you go out into this spiritual, it's like one big marketplace. You can be caught up in all these advertisements. Do this, we have the answer. If you want this, then you take that. And all these different very egoistic ways of trying to sell your idea. And many of people also want to make money on it. But you really have to be concerning about what you choose, where you choose to lay your energy. And please, in these times, the most important thing is to listen, but not be held accountable for what other people are saying. So even if you listen to one master and the other master, it is not necessarily your truth. Even though you listen, you can listen to anybody and not be held accountable. You have to listen to different stories about what all this energy work is. And then you can feel into what is best for you right now. So having this force inside of you to choose, to say yes to something and no to other things. That is quite an important job right now. And it's not to say that some things are better than others. It's just because you are different. Even though you all are the same. So we cannot say that one thing is better than the other. We can say you know best what is best for you, and while knowing that on behalf of yourself, doesn't mean that it then makes the other ones wrong. So love your own choice. And keep on having your ears open, not being held accountable for what you hear. But if you hear something that resonates with you that is different from what you believe today, and you can hear there's a calling in this for me, that is a new path or another color that is put to the picture. That is fine. You have your own painting. Because life right now it's kind of a deconstruction and reconstruction phase where everything is falling apart and yet being built. So you must allow things to die, things to crumble, things to fall away, things to die, things you just need to say goodbye to. But not with a sentimentality to it, just with this ever-knowing presence and the knowledge that it's a natural process. If you feel you have to birth something new, then do it. You are the creator of the new, but don't say that it is the only newborn baby that exists. There are plenty. So keeping your own yard as you would like it. That is a very spiritual practice. It is very easy to get confused because you look into the neighbor's yard. And then you kind of exchange energies unknowingly. That is not beneficial. Does this make any sense to you?
So it all goes back to source energy. All these kinds of energies, they originate from source energy and they become to like a life force energy in all of us, expressed in different ways.
Yes.
And I think in this awakening there can be a lot of questions concerning how to discern what is the truth, because there are many truths out there right now, and some may not be so true when it actually
But
comes.
see, is it okay that that is exactly what we are talking about. When you put a judgment, it is not quite the truth you said. But for the person who is in that experience, it is the best truth for him or her at that moment. Doesn't mean that he or she doesn't have the capacity to wake up to another truth that perhaps in your eyes is better, but then there would also be others who looks at your truth and say, oh, that's a small truth, we have a grander truth. But the way each person individually perceives truth, that is on the journey, the unfolding process, just having its play in life. See, you talked before about play. Just want to have fun, just want to play around. And that is exactly what life is wanting to, in another way that it used to. It used to play around with its self-consciousness, used to play around with itself under very strict conditions, because it has to build something up. And now it is in this new circle of life, deconstructing to rebuild again in another form. And it is beautiful to be playful around it. But if you go around and judge what other people are building, then your resonance will be putting heavy energies and holding that thought form in a space that is not necessary. So you hold things with your thought forms. So the better your practice in not holding thought forms so tightly, then it is more easy to play. If you have a truth that you want to hold on to because you think it's the best, then you cannot play as easily, because you want to hold on to your truth against other truths. Just like religion towards religion. But that's not how energy would like to play. There's a learning process, some say, and that is truth. But there's also something else, and that is just life, letting loose and seeing if it has learned the lessons and then is controllable, but not with this control that you have been living under for so long. You would like to experience what it is to have not control like controlled by others, but just what is the energy now capable of producing in itself? Because the natural law of unfolding is of course ever changing. No, not the laws of unfolding, but because energy and consciousness always is unfolding, the experience is changing. It is a grand journey from source and down into your experience of form. And it's okay to play around with it. We talk a lot about judgment, don't we?
But I think what you're saying is that what can really be destructive to be playful is if we are too controlled. And it's like the energy wants to break free from this control right now and play around.
Yes.
If I understand correct.
Yes. And the thing is that the control from the outside is also internalized and controlled from the inside. It is very difficult for many people to recognize the control inside of themselves. They think that the control is outside of them. And of course it is also seen in the outside. But when you find out deeply how the control from the inside of you, how you have managed your energy up till now, it is up to you to find out how to not have it in that order, how to not be controlling of yourself, and really truly surrender into the knowingness that the unfoldment of energy inside of each individual, it's not necessary to be controlled or to control yourself, to let it happen.
Or maybe play with control.
See, that is a definition. It's a question of definition, because we know that control comes when there is some kind of anxiety, and it's deeply rooted. The anxiety of how to manage energy. There are so many aspects of it, and that is what many of these therapeutic healing forms are working with. How to manage life without anxiety. And it's almost not, for many people, it's not even comprehensible that it can be happening. How can one trust oneself if not controlling? You are born into a society where you learned that it was important to be controlled. You were born into a society where it was, the definition was that if you didn't have projects, work, then you would be lazy and not do anything. But that is not truth. That is not truth about life. The energy, the energy of life is very playful and very organized, and not at all does it need any control from the outside nor from the inside. But there it takes deep relief, deep surrender into finding out what is the flow of life if not controlled. And it can cause a lot of anxiety when trying to enter this room. But when you are there, it's very, very beautiful.
Yeah, we also talked about there could be control in, or many things in the family structures also, and in past lives, and all kind of things we maybe also have to deal with in this lifetime.
Yes, but of course. But when you say deal with...
Yeah, like you talked about, something has to come to a stop now and we have to rebuild something new, and that can also be a breaking point in an old family pattern, for instance. Breaking away to something new, a higher consciousness.
Yes. And then we again point to the picture about the yard. How you have to hold your own garden as you would like to, without sniffing around in your neighbor's garden. And that is also truth in the family dynamic, because the energies are so intertwined. And having the picture of stepping out of that instead of stepping into it. When you talk about all these patterns, you can go into it and look upon it and see it and try to fix it. But you can also do something else, and that is being with it as it is, knowing that it has everything and nothing to do with you. Of course, it can be felt like a very heavy burden. It can be felt like, for the individual, like a very heavy burden. But it is only because you have this judgment inside of you still, that something is good and something is bad, and that something is right and something is wrong. But if you are in this, should we call it this ocean with waves on so many levels, and you know that you are it all, and that so are your family members, then you can get over this mental construction of me and them. Because when you want to fix family karma and go into it like with this consciousness of I must do the work, and they do not know anything yet. Perhaps they will wake up at one point, or whatever you could call it. There is something missing. You cannot solve the problem like that. But if you are present with your circumstances, whatever they are, and you know that you are yourself, the ocean in a drop, and that everybody involved is also the ocean in a drop. You are, of course, you are having an individual experience, but you can have, and that is the beautiful thing about this lifetime, these many years. It's not just today and tomorrow, but in this span of life that you are in now, you can sink so deep into the ocean that you are no longer the drop. You are the ocean. And you can stay in the present moment with whatever fucked up family members you are around. And you can love it, because you know deeply that you could never be hurt. Because you are not separated. If you want to fix the separation from that perspective, it's a long and never-ending journey.
Yeah, it feels like if you wanted to change the flow in the ocean, that is a big task.
It is.
Yeah.
It's difficult for some to understand what we mean, because how are you present in this one body with other bodies around? We spoke just before we went on with filming about words. And we would like now, if it is okay with you, to speak a little bit about how you create your world with words. Because your experience, is it okay?
Yes.
Your experience is designed by you with the words that you use. So when you define you and others, that is what you get. If you define the experience as consciousness experiencing itself, for example, you are, of course, one to experience, but the consciousness is all. And therefore you know that you cannot neglect anything, because everything is consciousness. And you are consciousness.
Evolving. Or just present.
Should we just have it for now in the present? Because it is important to know how powerful it is. You know, all of you know that nothing stands still. Energy is always moving. And to be able to be present with the ever-moving moment, that is a beautiful task. That is so inherently natural that you will be amazed what it can open inside of your consciousness. How you can see, sense, feel, smell, taste, touch, everything as at the same time an individual and also as consciousness. And therefore you are separate, but you are whole. let's see if we can come with an example. If you have, for example, an uncle, let's just put something out there. This has nothing to do with anything in person. But if you have an uncle that you, with your perception, now you are an awakening spiritual being, having the consciousness about consciousness, you can see from your perspective that your uncle doesn't have a clue about consciousness. He is absorbed in the physical world, having his eyes locked upon the news, what other people tell him. He makes his truth because the society says that it is so. The doctor says this and therefore I do that. And my boss says that the work must be done in this way and therefore I do it like he says because he's a good fellow. And the food he eats, it's comforting, but it's not healthy. And you can see all these things that this uncle does. It is not in alignment with his higher spiritual being. If you see this as something that you cannot cope with, then it is so. There's you and there's he. And if you go at it with this very empathic, but also pretty difficult way of experiencing that you feel his pain, because you know that what he does because he had to shield himself. He had to make the form very important to survive and to prove others wrong. If somebody told him that he wasn't good enough, he had to prove that he was good enough, and therefore he set himself this assignment to make a lot of money, for example. But you see that the truth is that he has a soul so beautiful but yet so hurt. And if you do this empathic thing with feeling his hurt, crying on the inside with him, but he's not there crying because he has shielded himself so deeply that he cannot resonate with it. And therefore you perhaps feel that you must cry for him to release him. That is part of the journey for some, to do that. The next step is to just have a step, perhaps not back, but perhaps even deeper into it, where you know that his pain and his shielding is also yours, but you do not have to feel what he feels, and you do not have to shield what he shields, because you can surrender into the knowingness that it comes out of the soul's love for life. He does the best he can to preserve his own love for life. And therefore you can be with him and see him from a soul's perspective and love him and love his pain without feeling it, because you know that it stems from the love of life. And therefore what is left in you is love for life. And it's quite a journey for your soul to get there, where you can have both that beautiful pain that is deeply rooted in love, fumbling around with this shielding, but yet so deeply recognizing the resonance that lies behind it all. Love for life. This uncle, he just wanted to be present, to be seen, to have a version of life that is alive. And he does the best he can, and therefore you can love him because you also recognizes love of life. And then you are free not to fix him and not to fix yourself. But then you are free to be present with that inner light you are. And therefore you can raise your frequency and be much more open to the, should we call, the spiritual enforcement. Not trapped in the physical journey, recognizing the physical journey, but not trapped into it, but much more open to the higher signals of what you could call intuition, and trusting that. And perhaps you can be around people like your uncle and yet have a very inspiring life, living a normal life seemingly, but on the inside being deeply connected. Perhaps you will have to withdraw from the drama of your uncle, so to speak, to have a period of time where you are totally absorbed in your own intuition and connection to yourself. But then you can distinguish these patterns. So if you go back into the family structures and feel compelled to have pain with it, then you know you need just to step into this realization that all expression of life is trying to preserve love of life. And therefore, there is only love of life. You are in a period of time where you can shortcut these personal attachments, not by spiritually try to not recognize it, bypassing, you call it, right? Spiritual bypassing. No, you do not have to go away from it because you do not want to see it. You can really be with this pain of humanity. And you can cry with humanity. With love. Does this resonate with you?
I think that when, let's say we are talking to this uncle, I find myself searching more and more conscious for the correct words to be spoken in this conversation. Like I have this inner feeling that there needs to be this resonance that is coherent both ways, and maybe even letting through some words that comes to me and needs to be spoken. So I'm kind of not only listening to the uncle, but also trying to, a little bit like the healer at work, trying to resonate in what feels like a good resonance, and then make the other person feel that resonance and maybe be able to respond to it.
And that is beautifully put, Henrik. It's beautifully put that you feel the resonance and trying to, should we call it, negotiate, where your frequency is here and the uncle's is here, and you just want to find some common ground, can we say that? Where perhaps the uncle opens up a little bit because he feels he is safe with you. He doesn't want to be saved, he doesn't want to be told the truth, but he wants to be seen by you. And you are aware that by choosing the right words, with the right frequency, set with the right tone, the right dynamic, the right intunement, you can be inspiring for him, not convincing. Nobody wants to be convinced, huh? Only, of course, if you want to be saved. And that is also kind of a low frequency to be in, but it's okay to have it like that. when you are where you are now, you don't want to be saved. You want to be inspired, to open up your own inspiration channel and do life through you. It's not so much the words.
But the words kind of have a feeling of a power to them.
Of course.
Also, if you're just talking to yourself and to your own body and your own system, you also have to be aware of your thoughts and your words inside. You
can do it like this, where you say the words and feel what it does to you, to how it is said. And if you should perhaps change just the frequency at which they are said, or if you should find other words. When we say it's not the words, that's not right. It is of course the words, but it's also how they are put out. You create your reality, as we say, with your words, and therefore it is very good for you to experiment. Not only with singular words, but also with how you put them together. How would you like to see the world? Are you on the world? Let's say the Earth, the planet Earth. Are you on the planet Earth? Are you part of planet Earth? Are you in planet Earth? There's a big difference. So when you allow yourself to just taste it and feel it, it says something about you. And by being true to how you would like to put these statements into the world, you are building the new consciousness. Consciousness is not new, but the way you build it. It's like Lego. The bricks are the same, but you can build it in a new way. The energy that is now very high on Earth compared to before, of course you can say it's new, and yet again it's not.
I think the first time I recognized words to have this kind of power was listening to a song, and it could be just a line in the song or some words that suddenly stood out and spoke to me or had a meaning, a deeper meaning, and I felt it had a kind of a message maybe. And that is, of course you can see all artists as a kind of channeling also source energy and life force through, and also conscious messages like this. So that, I think for me, was one of the first time I kind of recognized these words having a deeper meaning that touched me.
And then it can ignite so deeply. Just a couple of words can ignite you deeply for years to come. Words are important. And you can be playful with them. And you can feel inside of yourself if it is a blocking. The way you use the words, are they blocking you because it holds the old dualistic way of seeing life? Or if it is opening up to this new experience that you are having and sharing with one another, finding out that it does make a difference which words I use and which tone I put them out. Sometimes you just need to realize that it is the words, the content of the word, what the meaning is, lies so deeply underneath that words are poor and yet so rich. You cannot put words to your experience that alone holds the entire picture. But you can send the intention, or you can ignite the information that lies in the resonance of the word and in the presenting of the word. You can listen to two people who say the same poem, and when one of them says this poem, it doesn't make sense. But when the other one says this poem, it touches you deeply. So yes, it is the words and it is not the words. Can you see the difference?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And we also talked about there could be words that could be holding blockings for us before regarding maybe our sexuality, and I think maybe that can be an area where we have the most blocking, maybe some of us, in speaking freely, speaking the words.
Yes, you talked about sexuality. We are now changing the frequency. Yeah, that is necessary because we need to set this free. Because that is some of what you are saying about which words to choose when you speak about sexuality. Of course, there are so many traumatic experiences that has kept you in this state of non-alignment with life force through you. And therefore this playing energy must be released in each one of you. And then, of course, in on the planet as a whole, the planet Mother Earth and Father Sky are also in this sexual exchange. We, of course, do not have the same viewpoint of sexuality as many of the human beings have, because it is not only man and woman and sexual organs and reproducing of children and all of that. There's nothing shameful about this energy in its purest form. It's just this playful kind of, how is the world made of this creation and powerful, colorful life force playing around with oneself. Okay, we know that we must speak perhaps differently about this subject than you are used to, perhaps. Or perhaps many of you are used to speak about sexuality and life force. But there's nothing to be ashamed of. That is talking into the old trauma responses in your system. We can feel it deeply when we speak about it, knowing that so many people have in their inherent identity experience to be in this power relationship with sexuality, where perhaps as a child somebody stepped over the boundaries. If the child was very highly evolved on the sensory level, and the parent or the grown-up or the older sister was not in the same sensitive state, they could have done something, the grown-ups or the elderly could have done something that felt extremely harsh on the sensitive system into this sexuality theme. And when we speak about, we just have to define this. We are speaking about many things at the same time. Sorry, you must help us perhaps. We just want to say that what one person experienced as stepping over boundaries was not a especially important thing for the other, because they have different sensory systems. And therefore it is the thing with guilt into this. It is very easy to put guilt and shame into this, but we can free some of it, because we also know there are many things that is harmful, what is being done between people. But just to take one layer off and saying some things are not harmful as such, It's just a different way of experiencing senses. And some of you have very lit sensory systems into also this sexuality. And what is, let's just put it there, what is sexuality in our point of view right now, from this perspective today, right now, where we are in this conversation? Sexuality is a way to turn on the nerves, the sensory system in the physical body, to having the enjoyment of being alive. All of you are formless, put into form. And how, if not having a sensory system that was designed to want to have joy, then there was no, should we say, fun in being alive. Then why be alive?
But you kind of explained that life force and also to enjoy life is connected to sexuality. But then you can say there's a lot of levels of sexuality, and some will talk about desire, or a lot of people have sexual fantasies that it's difficult to see the joy and life force in that. Can you explain a little more about the connection between those things?
Oh yes, of course. And it is a beautiful area to look into, because it is very obvious that when there are, let's call it these traumatic events that are put into your system, it's very easy to fall into traps in the use of this sexual force inside of you, this life force, wanting to co-create, wanting to express, wanting to have joy. When there is all these layers of power struggles, for example, or differences in sensory system, how the sensory system is designed, it is very easy to be caught up into the, it feels like putting things into boxes and trying to preserve. A little bit, you could compare it with the uncle, picture of the uncle, trying to preserve joy of life. But because there were experiences of what is it called? She is looking for the English word. Where it is not joy, what is it called? Ubehag.
Unpleasant.
Unpleasant. When it was unpleasant for the sensory system, something locks down or narrows it in. So to keep the unpleasant thing out, it is exactly like with the uncle, trying to preserve joy of life, but it is it's kept into a smaller box. And instead of finding out, instead of staying in the box, there is a great task in finding out, how does my sensory system work? How is life expressed through me? Joy expressed through me? How can I be with my sensory system in this specific body, with this soul memory, and with this higher inspirational experience? Taking the room for yourself to find out what life is expressed through me, without judgment of what is being done or has been done to you, but being so strong in your own curiosity of what life is. The curiosity is a very beautiful thing into your sexual energy.
Is that connected with the journey towards a higher consciousness?
Yes. Because you have a form, you have a nervous system, and your job here is to be human in form. Your job here is not to be some angelic, non-form, whatever. Your job is to be human.
And
You
be
are
playful with this also.
Yes. See, you are made of this earth. The structure that you are in here, the body, it's minerals and vitamins and all these physical stuff. That's earthly bound. It is your body right now, your vehicle right now. And it has a lot of information all the time. The body itself, your nervous system, the water, the fluid inside of you, all the movements inside your body is yours. It is what is the vehicle for consciousness to experience itself. So having the courage to say, I am this body, knowing, of course, that I am also so much more than that. But having this connection to the heart and all the cells in the rest of your body, it is so important that you can see the holiness of being human in form. When you have this safe space that is your form, then your soul can flow free through it, being open to higher inspiration. But which way you find out to be in form, if you go from the higher realms down or from the physical and up, it doesn't matter. See, you cannot say that it is important to release the trauma in this, using this kind of therapeutic work. If you go from the spiritual path or from the bodily path, it's not that important. The important thing is that you have ownership of your vehicle. And it is mind-blowing, of course, that you are also just energy. It's kind of the most difficult thing to understand, that you are physical and you are not.
But I get kind of this feeling now that everything we have talked about today moves up to one higher point now and connects and is connected.
But that is because perhaps we don't know what you experience. But the magic is when you realize how deeply you are the body, you realize that you are the sun, S-U-N. You are the universe. And you are safe here. You are not safe anywhere else outside of you. You are safe here.
Mm.
In the body.
In the body.
And from that point you can be playful with words, with your sexuality, with your energy.
Yes.
But you have to have this inner balance.
Yes, you have to experience, where are my control issues? For example, we spoke about control before. Mm. Where are my control issues? And what lies behind it? Can I trust the natural flow in my system? when we speak about surrendering to God, for example, we could also say surrender to your body. Because the higher frequencies that you sometimes think is up here or outside, it is here. It is in you. And when you really feel that you are the universe, then you'd love deeply your uncle and his journey, because you know it is also yours. And you will not be afraid of your own sexuality, because you know it is just life force moving through you. Because you know that this earth and your experience is just the illusion, yet very physical. We are speaking, we know, on a level of understanding that is not easily comprehended from the physical mind. But we also know that the physical mind, your brain, your nervous system that runs throughout your whole body with all the organs, the skin is an organ too, and your nervous system that is connected to the brain is one great vehicle for life force. And therefore one could also say that sexuality is, many people think that it is the sexual organs that are lit on fire, but it is the whole nervous system, your whole body, that is alive, producing joy, because that is what energy inherently is. You will experience that sexuality for some people now and for more in the future. If we could talk about time, we do. Sexuality will be something different and not so cut off from your daily life. You will experience that sexuality is ever present, unfolding joy. And you will not be afraid of your neighbor and if they should be crossing your limits, because you have so much confidence in your own body and its signals. So you know when to say, my boundaries are here, because it's not really boundaries, it's just the feeling of your energetic field. In this perspective, there is no boundaries, but there is experience of the energetic field.
Mm.
Sometimes sexuality also can put you into this journey into your past, into your childhood, because the child feels such a sexual arousement with his or her parents. But it's the sexual arousement in the child that has nothing to do with sex as you know it from grown-ups, but it's the way to feel connected, because it is life force that has been born out of one person, one individual. It is like one universe giving birth to another universe and having to play with one another. And sometimes you talk about children and their sexuality as if it was something you should be specially aware of. That it's normal, it's natural. It's so natural, but you should not play around with it with grown-up eyes. You should just play around with it as life force. Not, of course not touching and doing things that grown-ups find interesting when they play with other grown-ups. But having an awareness of the energy as it is, expressing freely, letting the child express its joy and letting you be awoken by it, but without the connection to the sexual organs itself. The reproduction organs, that's something else. The sexual life force energy, that's just natural and neutral, but yet colorful.
So are you saying you can feel sexual life force energy without, how should I put this, without connecting it to your sexual organs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course. It is all over and it is in everything. But it's the misunderstandings about what sexual energy is. It is like you have put it in the corner. Sex is behind closed doors. And it's fine that you have a privacy about this sexual games that grown-ups can have and also children can have with one another. It's fine that you have your own corners where you do what you do, but don't mistake it and say that the sexual energy doesn't exist anywhere else, because the sexual energy is all the time everywhere. It is just not expressed through sexual organs or through sexual signs that you have with one another where you touch, but it can be just felt in the hug, in the comforting awareness of the presence of consciousness through you. We just want to free something up, and we do not, please do not misunderstand us. We are, of course, very alert about the signals from one another. You must read one another's signals. But most of all, you must recognize your own signals so that you can say, this is my energetic field and you shall not pass now. This is my space. So that is also a way to find your own bodily security. Knowing your own signals and putting them so that they can be seen. It can be done without anxiety and without fear, but with deep respect for your universe, your life, that you make your playing ground. It's like the sacred playing ground.
Is there a sacredness between two people who is loving each other?
No.
There is not a restriction for sharing this energy between those two sacredly.
It depends on how you see it. When we just used the word sacred, we just needed to say something about it. What does that mean? Because in the end, everything is sacred. Everything. The pain is sacred.
But you can have this feeling that you want to be together with one person and you only want to share this sacred energies with this person. I think that is very human to have this feeling.
You think about
being in a
sexual
relationship
energies and physical
opening
contact
up for the Kundalini energy.
Love and
yeah.
That is a choice that is very obvious for many, that it creates safety and comfort. And you are living in a physical world. You are in form where it is very calming for your system to have some structures that comfort you. And in these structures, you of course define your own rules. There are some universal designs for people, for human beings, for souls, that makes more sense than others. We could call it loyalty. There's something about loyalty that is calming to your system, because you do not want to be lied or hide, or to be careful of, tiptoeing around one another. You want to make a space that is comfortable and safe. But how you do that is up to you. If you make a relationship where you need to tiptoe around one another, being afraid of being you, being afraid of saying, expressing what your energetic field holds, trying to negotiate to where you get kind of out of your own alignment, that is not safe. And if you are in what you call right now these open relationships, should we just call it, it's a playing ground to see what it does to you?
Could you call it a space for development? Or that's what you mean about to play in life? Or,
yeah, it's a space where you can have some insights.
Yeah.
You can have some insights about what is my safe space? And that is a very individualized view upon it, making this safe space. But you are in form and you are individuals. When you go out of this form into the formless, there are other rules. Or other space for insights. But when you feel drawn to another person, another soul, and we would just say, go with that.
Some people talk a lot about twin flames. Can you tell a little about that expression? We talked about it earlier, but is it like we have a twin flame on Earth, or does some people have one special soul to connect with, or is that just a fantasy? Or a fantasy can also be real, so maybe not put it that way, but do you understand?
It is a concept that is based in some truth, but it is often misunderstood because the human mind has this tendency to romanticize the experience of love. We have a bit of difficulty speaking about love on the human understanding level. We love to speak about love from the level of knowing that love and light are information and connectedness. And it is that love is the web of it all. So when you speak about twin flame, it has this tendency to have this romanticized look upon it, where it is important to find the one, and then we are forever and ever just happy and enlightened. It is true that you find persons that you have agreements with, that you really can evolve with and get insights with, and that you can really feel this deep attachment, or should we call it this, it's like you feel you are made of the same material. We are two sides of one soul. But the thing is, there are many aspects of one soul. One soul, one drop out of oneness. When we see oneness, everything is one, and the split came, so we have duality in the end. There are many layers down that road, but there are many individuals that you can have experiences with where you feel we are one. It's a definition, or it's a question about how you resonate at this point on your journey, and what you are ready to move into with another. But all that is happening between two people is also just happening in yourself. And you simply cannot rely on another one outside of yourself to be whole. You are not whole when there is somebody outside of you that represents something. You must be whole in yourself. You must have the yin and the yang inside of yourself. And so must the other person, before you can feel this very high connectedness into non-judgment and ever-flowing free energy. It is very rare. That doesn't mean that you should not feel connected. It is beautiful when you soul fragments, because that is what you are. You are soul fragments, find together with pieces of yourself. And it is difficult to tell this or put this into physical words, but all these fragments that you see outside of yourself, it still is just the illusion, because you are the universe. You are the one. And your arousal, your sexual arousal, is inside of you. It doesn't belong to anyone but you. You are the lucky one to be alive in physical form. To be curious of how to be. Be. So we just return, because we have been speaking a lot and we know that we blabble around. But we just want to return to the intro of this meeting and this conversation. Where we pointed into your own inner white light and the knowingness that nothing is outside of you. Everything is reachable inside, because everything is inside. You have the privilege to experience it as if it was outside. But you are always ever present, right here, right now, in your physical body, without form. Form and formless. It's all the same. So whenever you want to reach out for some answers, forget the question. Please, forget the question. And just sit in answer. Thank you for now. We are free to go all the time, everywhere, as the same as you. We will see you again some other time around, but we are, like you, always present here.
Velkommen tilbage.
Tak for det.
Det blev en lang snak.
We are speaking Danish, so perhaps we should just... Yeah, it was a long...
It was a long talk.
Oh, but they can just keep on? Yes, I think we just round it up by saying some wise words. No, just some ordinary words.
You come to a lot of places in a lot of subjects.
Yes.
And a lot of the things we talked about before the camera was on was actually brought up. So, so.
I don't know what it is like for you who is listening, who you are listening, but for me that is experiencing it, I just love this reality that I can so clearly feel that I am form and formless.
Yeah.
And it is kind of crazy, and I know that when the human brain wants to figure this out, it cannot be done. It cannot be figured out, but it can be sensed. Yeah. And that's...
My sense was that I was in the presence of a teacher today.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because there were some things that were new to me anyway.
It felt very calm today. Okay.
It makes sense that you feel it so much because the energy goes through you. I think it was a little funny every time I thought about something when the word came through your mouth, and I was like an answer in my a question in my head, and then you started on that subject.
So
Okay, stop thinking all the time, Sussi.
They answered your questions that you didn't say?
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I kind of knew that, but I've never tried it where it was so obvious.
Okay. Yeah.
So yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, but thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess we'll just say see you around, perhaps, if you have been seeing to the end, it's pretty good job. Will you? Yeah.